It's good. We should.
And again, thank you for tuning in. Listen, today I have the absolute pleasure to be in conversation with Chidi Egbujie. Now, we're going to be speaking deep on the subject of what? Business growth, as well as tax efficient strategies. Now, if you don't have tax efficient strategies, I will guarantee you, you are leaving money on the table or you are throwing money away. If you have tax efficient strategies in place, that means you're really looking after your business. Because I'll tell you why. Governments around the world give tax incentives for those people running their business in a certain way. And that's why we've asked Chidi to come on and say, hey, listen, I'm a small business owner. What can you advise me? So he does that for mostly tech companies, but also all this stuff applies to small businesses as well, or generally. So Chidi, welcome to the Business and Wealth Show. Thank you for jumping on.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Good intro. I like that.
You are most welcome. You're most welcome. Now, Chidi, I want to talk a little bit about what is it you do now. Let's start from what is it your company does, and then I want to go deeper into why that is in a little while, and what were you doing before that. So give us a little brief on I picked it up, but then I want you to tell us
Yeah.
your words.
So I think if I could split what we do into
Mm,
two, it would be first side on one side, it would be what we call compliance. So
okay.
really that is about making sure all our clients' obligations are met. And I think that's something I find that sometimes people miss, that the minimum that you should get from your accountant, the minimum is that my company is taken care of and I don't have to worry. But also, I'm aware of what's going on. So I'm clear on where we are with my numbers and where we are in regards to my tax situation. So that's like the minimum that you should get from your accountant. And then there's the other side where we have businesses that want to grow. So if you want to grow, you need a bit more than just file my tax return on time and tell me how much tax I need to pay. It then goes into advising me and strategy and growth and boosting revenue and improving profit and things like that. That's more the advisory side, which we help with as well.
Well, thank you. We're going to talk more about that. So, why should you stay and listen to this podcast? Well, listen, if you have a business, you want to get some tips and ideas and strategies around becoming more efficient. If you want to understand what should I ask my accountant, what should I check my accountant's doing? If they're not doing it, you want to speak to Chidi. So, Chidi, let's say this: what got you into, you started this practice 3 years ago, helping small business owners, especially in tech. But why? Why did you start this business?
I think it's one of those things that I've been working as an accountant from, I qualified as an accountant coming up to 20 years ago. And
Okay.
it was the big dream to work in some of the biggest firms. And I've worked in industry, but also in some of the top banks. And one of the things that actually came from working in that industry in financial services is we start to work one virtually. We started working virtually a long time ago, so
Right.
way before COVID. It's just how the way the bank operates. There's clear desk policies, and that's how we do things. So you learn a lot about, you know efficiency in your systems and processes,
Right.
but also is data, the importance of the use of data, whereby businesses or divisions of a business will sit down and look at the data and let that data guide the decision making. So,
Mm,
the motivation is then to be able to share that, because what we find is a lot of business owners essentially winging it. When we were at the bank, and I'll try and keep this short, when we were at the bank, we were part of an incentive where we had small business owners just gathered in a room, and we just, as a kind of a give back to the community. So some finance guys, we came and we try to help them.
Mm.
And then you're sitting with those business owners in their max and they've got all these bright ideas and they're making a lot of money, but they have zero concept about finances. And essentially, a lot of them are stressed and they're just winging it. So, really, that was where the penny dropped. And I would like to help and support business owners to make key decisions using their data.
Right, that's fantastic. So you're using their data, then advising them on what steps and what strategies to put in place in order to get the end goal that they looking for. Is that right?
Correct. It's trying to help people understand that there's a lot of juice in your data,
Yeah.
in how you're performing. If your data is structured right,
Mm.
you can start to look at different sectors of your revenue. You can start to look at how you can manage your costs. You could build a plan, a budget around your goals, and you could start to track yourself monthly, quarterly. So all those things, they drive decisions. And all those decisions have one outcome, which is you achieving your goals,
When you
which
say data, Chidi,
correct.
are you talking data from the accounting side or data from all elements, including marketing, sales?
So good question, Mark. So typically, a small business owner has to submit accounts 9 months after the year end.
Correct.
So if someone's year end is end of December, they don't have to submit their accounts to September of the following year.
Yeah.
So you've gone through your whole year, and then 9 months after you submit your accounts, for a lot of businesses, that's the first time they see the numbers. That's the first time they see how their business is doing
Right.
and all the elements of their business. And the amount of people ask you, so what did you turn over last year? And they don't know.
Oh, they have no clue. Right, right.
No
Yes,
clue.
yes, yeah.
So really is trying to, if you want to grow, right, is trying to have a financial processes and systems that would allow you to see that data. So last month, let's look at the data. This month, let's look at the data from last month. And what
Right.
does that tell us? And where was our targets? And how's our revenue split out? And how's our gross profit? And there's a lot that goes into that, but essentially, that's what would help businesses make those decisions in terms of we need to spend more here, we need to cut this, or we need to boost this, and so on.
What is the main problem that, look, let me say this, let me put a context. What I teach a lot of our clients as a business um, and wealth coach is that you've got to understand what business you're in. And also, the only reason why anybody gives you their money, the only reason why you have sales is because these clients of yours, they've got a problem. They've got a problem that they don't want, and there's a result they want they don't have. And so, what is the problem? So, if you're a business owner and you understand the problems they have, and your whole thing is just to solve those problems, they'll pay you. And the more problems you solve, the more money potentially you can make. Why do people pay you? Why do people come to you, Chidi? What's a problem that you are solving that, listen, they can't do on their own?
Well, so there'd be two sides.
Mm.
Someone's got a problem with their accountant, someone's got a problem with a tax situation,
Mm.
or someone doesn't have an accountant, right? Someone else will say, look, talk to Chidi, he can help you. But
Okay.
then at the same time, we have someone who has struggled with paying their VAT. So they're in the situation where the VAT is due. And essentially, if you think of VAT is actually not your money. You collect the money and you're meant to hand it off to the government,
To the
but you
government.
spent it
Yeah.
because you haven't got any proper planning in place. You spent it and you don't know how to achieve it. You don't know where to take your business. We can help you start from the basics. So this first step is helping you clarify your goals.
Mm.
And then we can then turn that into like a financial blueprint that you can then use to run your business.
Awesome. Listen, Chidi is a UK specialist in accounting and tax. So when you talk about VAT or VAT, some
Yes,
other parts of the world you call it GST
that's
or
correct.
sales tax or these kind of stuff. So VAT is the same thing. It's a tax. So it's a tax, it's a tax, it's a tax because the government wants to collect as much as it can. So
Yeah.
let's talk about really, how do you then help people to ensure that they're more efficient in regards to tax payments, tax setup?
Very good question. So, in terms of tax, right, everyone needs to pay it, but the goal is to pay the least amount of tax that you need to pay
Mm,
legally, right? So you're not, it's not evasion. We're not evading tax.
right.
We're just trying to avoid paying too much tax. And so the first element of it is just at the basic level is being clear on your business performance and the impact on tax. So it's really, if we're up to date, if we're on top of things, we can see the numbers, we can have an idea of how much you need to take out of your business, and is then advising you accordingly of the most tax efficient way of getting that money out of your business. And then is then making sure that every opportunity that the business owner has to reduce their taxes, we take advantages of those.
And how easy or how straightforward is that? Because one of the other one of our other guests on this podcast some time ago said, I think it was relating it to the US, that there was some time ago, I think maybe 20 years ago, the tax book or tax code, there was about 400 pages or something.
Mm.
Now it's like 4,000 pages. So if 400 pages to 4,000 pages, it's hard for that small business owner to really do it themselves. It's going to be
100%.
very, it's right. So why do you think they've set things up that way?
Well, I think it's just a list of rules, right? So
Okay.
you have a list of rules, and they keep adding to the rules, and they keep changing the rules.
Mm,
And especially when it links into politics as well, they're bringing in new rules to appease different parts of society, and so you end up with this huge list of rules, which is why sometimes I have to explain to people that I don't have all the answers in my head. But
mm.
what I do know is the different areas and opportunities to then take it away and just come up with the latest and the best approach to soothe their particular business.
Wow, wow, wow. One of the things you talk about, Chidi, is KPIs, key
Correct.
performance indicators. Now, when you're working with small businesses and helping with their business growth, what are some of the essential numbers or indicators they have to watch? Or does it change depending on which company you're talking to?
Yeah, correct. So KPIs would vary depending on the industry and on what we're trying to achieve. But one of the ones that I find that people miss out on is really the costs of sales. So the
Mm,
cost of sales. So if we think of our income statement, we have our revenue, so what revenue we've collected, and then we have the costs that went directly into producing that revenue. So if it was a service, maybe use some subcontractors.
mm,
If it was a product, maybe we use some goods, some raw materials. And what that does is allows you to then get to your gross margin. So that
mm,
gross margin, and then you can, depending on how in depth your bookkeeping is, you can vary the the cost of sales and the gross margin to particular segments of your business,
mhm.
right? So if you imagine if you went into a coffee shop and you might find a combination of you can get a free muffin with a coffee or things like that, which are put in front of the biscuits.
Right,
So the
right.
biscuits, the coffee and the muffins right in front.
Yeah.
There's a reason behind that because they've worked out the margin that actually the coffee or the muffin has a higher higher profit margin
Right, right.
than the biscuits. So they're going to focus on that because that's where really that's what they're saying is that's where the money is right now. So we're going
Mm,
to really prioritize this. And so it's really getting the business owner to have that as a mindset. But a lot of people don't even track that, right?
yeah,
So if
yeah.
you have two products or two services, you don't know where to focus because you don't have that level of insight. And then you can apply that to your people. You can apply that to any part of your business to then say, okay, I want to monitor that percentage and
Yeah.
we want to increase it. We want to track and see how. So when the numbers, especially as you grow, when your numbers start to kind of blow up, it's very hard to then know what's really happening here. Are
Mm,
we make is our profit margin going down or up? Because sometimes just because the number is coming up, it doesn't necessarily mean we're doing that much better, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. No, I get it. It's very important. It takes a detailed eye like yours to be able to not be emotionally attached to the business,
Yeah,
but tell the business owner in reality, this is what it looks like. This is what's really going on.
correct.
And if you want to
Correct.
maximize your profitability, your margin, then these are the steps you need to take. I presume that's what you're doing with them.
100%.
Fantastic.
Especially when you're growing, especially when you're growing.
Yeah. Let me take a little detour in terms of company structure.
Yes.
Some of the research that I've done, and I've advised various number of our clients around the world, is if you're not structured the right way, potentially you are going to pay a lot more tax. So,
Yes.
for example, some people say to me, "Oh, Matt, I'm in business," and I say, "Okay, what type of business?" Well, it's in my name. So you're self-employed. Okay,
Yeah.
self-employed. It's in your name. It's that entity. That entity compared to a private limited company is different. And so the research I say to them, typically, if you're just self-employed and with all the different taxes that come in, you're
Mhm.
probably going to pay around, add all these other things in there, probably 60% of taxes. Whereas the business owner structured the right way, depending on which country you are in, could be around 19%, 20% on average around the world. And I speak and I do a lot
Mhm.
of business
Mhm.
around the world. So the big difference between all these different taxes coming at you, if you're just self-employed, not structured the right way, 60% on average around the world versus 20% or 19, whatever, 21%, depending where you are, is huge, right? Anything you want to add to that or say to that?
And that's a topic I love talking about because I think there's a kind of a misconception that every business owner, if you haven't got a limited company, you're not serious, and and everyone needs to have a limited company. So one of the things I always ask, there's two things I always ask. One is where people are trying. What's your journey? Some people they have simple dreams. They don't want too much. They know what they're doing, and they're happy to stay in that way, and they turn over what they turn over. So if they have no aspirations to grow and be bigger, it's not for everyone
True.
because it comes with some heat. So then maybe it's not worth changing. So that's first one is the direction. And the
Mm,
second is how much money you make. Because a sole trader or self-employed, they get taxed on the profit. So
mm,
if you're a carpenter and your turnover is say 80K and your costs to all your materials and everything is 30K. So your profit then is 50K. That's what you pay tax on.
mm.
So that profit for me, and it's funny I've come to 50K. 50K is around the mark because 50K is the borderline when you drift into high rate tax.
Right,
That's the point when it starts to be really financially beneficial to switch onto a limited company.
right,
But
right.
it's just bearing in mind that sole trader, a lot of sole traders, you can submit your thing or your income tax return online yourself. It's
Mm,
best to get an accountant to make sure your all your expense you're doing it setting up in the right way, but also you're claiming all the things open to you because there's some things I talk about like your mobile phone and things like that, which a lot of business owners are not aware of. But at the same time, you've just got to be mindful that once you set up a limited company, you can no longer do it yourself, and so you
mm,
need someone like me to do you're gonna have to your company from submission, which is your corporation tax return, and then you'd have still have to do your income tax return. So
right.
all those things cost money, but 50K is normally the mark, and it's very beneficial once you hit past that point to get someone that can advise you and make sure that your tax is as lean as possible.
I'm glad you've explained it this way because as a sole trader or as a self-employed person, if you're not set up properly, then you are not. I mean, like you said, it's okay if you just want this thing as a lifestyle. It gives you
Yeah,
a little income. You're okay. You can do what you need to do. But
correct.
where I want to put it to is we have a lot of listeners who want to not only do that, but they want to create wealth. They want to create wealth. So I want to go down that angle.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
okay, what are the steps from your perspective, from your professional background, that allows a person to build their business in a way to create wealth, to build
Yeah.
wealth? Any thoughts on that?
I love that question. So, so for me, it's step one. Step one is the goal. Okay.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times people talk about trying to where you are, you locate, and what you want. Okay. Because by default, when you ask me where I am, I think of all the hustle and pain and stress that it goes into giving me what I have. And
Right.
let's say what I have is 60K turnover. And then when you ask me where I want to get to, it's only natural that I'm still tied back. I'm still trying to picture how can I do more? And so maybe I could stretch 20%, 30%. And I'll say, okay, I want turnover 100K. I
Right.
could be pushing it. I could probably say 80K just because I'm thinking of my current situation.
Mm.
But I push that aside. And my question is, what's the goal? What do you want for your life,
Mm-hmm.
for your family? And then let's say that's here. Some people say, "Oh, I want to turn." I spoke to a guy who's referred to me, and he was like a PT, okay.
Mm.
And so we had this conversation. It's like, what would you, he wants to buy a flat. He wants to be able to travel. He wants this and that, and then the number he came up with is 100K. So he needs
Okay.
100K a year, which
Mm.
is fine. But I was like, okay, is that 100K? Do you want your business to turn over, or do you want 100K for you? He wants 100K for him.
Wow.
So then you say, okay, fine. If you want 100K for you, let's extrapolate that into your business.
Perfect.
And then in the end, we'd run some numbers and we say, okay, do you realize that your business would have to turn over around 350 to 400K when you take into the costs that goes into it, right? And that's what you have to turn over.
What's his
And
reaction?
oh, wow, that's a lot. But you see,
Mm-hmm.
the gift in that kind of that chain of dialogue is that now the decisions that you have to make, because now we say, okay, that's in 3 years, then
Mm.
what's it in 2 years? What's it going to be in 1 year? What
Yeah.
do you have to do in the next 90 days to
Yeah.
be on track for that? And all of a sudden, his decisions are going to be bigger. He's, he's now got these, he's strategizing differently.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, he's doing things in the next 90 days that he wouldn't have done if he was just saying, I was going to just increase by 10%. That's the gift. That's the beauty of being able to look at it in that way.
And the beautiful thing you just said, Chidi, is that you made him to really think about the numbers.
Yeah.
Do you want 100K in turnover, or do you want
Yeah.
100K in your bank account for your lifestyle?
Yeah.
Well, and then suddenly he realizes that, hey, you're saying through the numbers, you got to hit 400,000 minimum
Correct.
on that
Correct.
lifestyle. Now,
Yeah.
as a PT, as a personal trainer,
Yeah.
what happens in that moment is that they come to realization, hey, I can't do this on my own now. I can't sell my
100%.
my time. I can't sell my value on time. I've got to
100%.
set things up differently.
Wait,
And
I
that's
got
exactly,
goosebumps. Yeah.
exactly you and I talk the same language.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
suddenly now I've got to think, like you say, you've got to do things differently. I've got to structure it differently. Maybe I've got to bring team members on board. I've got to do this. I've got to create something online, some systemization, all this kind of stuff. And that's
Maybe I've got to buy a gym,
yeah, 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 exactly. So suddenly we come from the sole trader to someone who's actually building for wealth, which is what I call it. In other words, building an asset, and that asset will now give him that minimum of 100,000 that he's looking for. But it's a different mindset. It's a different
Yes.
approach to doing business,
Yes.
right?
Yes. 100%. 100%. Another way of looking at it when I talk to business owners is to try and get them to understand what their business would look like if they were trying to sell it. So if you
Mm,
think, what do you plan to do with this business? At some point, I want to sell it.
yeah,
Now, if you want to sell that business, then we need to be able to, you need to have structured financials. You need to make sure you have accounting software because you need that history there. You can't be this, you can't be on mobile. People are calling all the time
Yeah.
and your email address. So again, similar, you're starting to implement things that have you working on the business rather than just embedded in it with your hands on every button. And
Yeah.
that could free, it's very freeing, should I
Well,
say.
you're absolutely, because the self-employed mentality is very different from a business owner
Yes. Yes.
mentality.
100%.
And the business owner mentality says, okay, I can eventually sell this if I want. And the fact of the matter is, for every business owner listening in, you make more money when you sell a business than when you are in it, operating it on a daily basis. So if you're following strategies from Chidi, which is great, which means set everything up in a way that that asset becomes very valuable. When it becomes valuable, very valuable, with the right profit margin and everything else, you can sell it if you choose to, or you can put a general manager in place to manage it because it's systemized, it's got a right team in place. Now you can do other things, or you can say, hey, now let's set this. I want to scale it. I want to
Yeah.
scale it and take it to a whole new level. Fantastic, fantastic stuff there, Chidi. Fantastic. Now, I want to give you a scenario. We got a lot of listeners who are experts, like consultants and
Mm-hmm.
coaches and accountants and architects. They're experts in their field,
Yeah.
professionals. And what I say to them is, as an expert in your field, still build your business in a way that it becomes highly profitable, systemized, and everything else. Build it for wealth. Now, the profits that they make in their business, how can they? Let's talk UK, for example,
Mm-hmm.
because in other countries it may be slightly different. How can they utilize some of these excess profits to grow wealth in other asset classes, if it's possible?
That's an interesting point. So I think generally the whole, uh, in terms of tax efficiency,
Mm,
everyone should be looking at opportunities to get all the money out, as much money out as you can from your company every year, paying the least amount of tax.
mhm,
Everyone should be looking at your inheritance tax, potential
mm,
liability, you
mm.
know, but also cash flow. Cash flow is, I talk more because cash flow is a big Achilles heel
Oh yeah.
with business owners running out of cash, but it's also when you have excess cash, what's the best way to to use it, you know? But there's opportunities where through your business, you have the opportunity to invest
Mhm.
through your business. So through your buying, investing in assets, so without actually drawing the money, but the business now has the opportunity to invest, and it could be other companies, it could be other assets. So we've got clients that have different businesses under a group structure because
Mm.
they've started off here, and we've said, okay, now you've got this cash, you can do this with it, or you can do
Right,
that with it, and
right.
those have then become companies in their own right.
Yeah, and fantastic. I'm glad you're saying all this because most people don't realize that. And they spend the money, they don't invest the money, and suddenly they still on that rat race
Yeah.
constantly. So, hey, listen, it's been great speaking with you. Stay one moment. I want you to give us your final words in a moment
Yes.
in terms of anything I should have asked you. I haven't asked you, so you can tell us about that. But for now, and I want to say, for those of you listening in, remember to like, share, remember to follow, subscribe, depending on which channel you're on, and also put some comments in here. What did you learn from Chidi? What was an aha for you? Something that you may want to look at deeply or implement as well. Hey, by the way, Chidi,
Yes.
those who want to get hold of you, what is the best way for people to connect with you or contact you?
Yeah. So I've got an Instagram page called Virtual Focus Accountants,
Mhm.
and I'm Chidi Egbujie on LinkedIn, so they can reach out to me. Or my website, Virtual Focus Accountants. There's a contact form there. They can reach us.
Perfect. Now, any final words? Anything I haven't asked you that really people need to know?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One would be the important, because I most companies that go under is down to cash flow. So
Mm.
they run out of cash, and the key is to have a system or a habit of forecasting your cash. So you're planning in advance before you get into these situations. Because the real unfortunate scenarios are where a company that's profitable, they go under because they run out of cash. It's a real tragedy. And it's important that any business owners who are stressed about cash flow, they they need to seek help and get someone to help them set that up. And then another misconception about tax is really the advice that people get around tax. So, as an example, there's things that you could do, like you put a pin on your card in the cash point, it tells you no. But when it comes to tax, there isn't most of the time there isn't that fail button, there isn't that reject button. So
Mm.
you can put whatever you want in your tax return. You can claim whatever you want through your business. You can buy anything through your business bank account. And it's only going to be a problem when you get an investigation. So the
Wow.
key really is to avoid listening to people down the pub and just
Mm.
really get proper advice and making sure you're doing things the right way and be more proactive and talk to professionals like your accountants who can help you and plan and make sure you reduce your tax liability.
And listen, someone once said, if you think education is expensive,
Yeah.
try ignorance. Listen, if you don't do what Chidi is saying and you get into trouble, it's going to be much more expensive than paying a professional like Chidi so you do it the right way, right? So
100%.
I highly recommend you do that. And this is uh, from my own experience from being over, 24 years in business. I've seen it. I've advised so many people, and it's great to speak to Chidi here because he's really laying it out. And if you don't take the words of advice now, you will remember this in the future.
100%. 100%. I mean, I stopped with one example. I had a client, it's on my LinkedIn. There
Uh-huh.
was a client I had who was advised by somebody to set up VAT and just in they're different schemes, VAT schemes. This is GST tax we're talking about. And they were on the wrong VAT for their type of business.
Oh, wow.
By the time we looked at the numbers, it cost them an extra 15K in VAT.
Right. 15,000 that you don't want to be thrown away. 15,000 pounds, we're talking about 18, 19,000 US dollars. This is not
Exactly.
something you want to be thrown away. Great example there, Chidis. Thank you so much for the wealth of information and the details you've given here. Hey, reach out to Chidi if he can help you in any way. Remember, and we'll put your details, the footnotes of this show as well. Chidi, thank you very much for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
You are most welcome. You are most welcome.